Hey y'all, welcome to Fish Life Outdoors. This week's video, you're in the Cajun Cannon shop where today we're going to be making our own shaky heads. Stay tuned, you ain't gonna want to miss it. Hey guys, Cody here, Fish Life Outdoors, coming at you a little different today on a video on shaky heads, building your own shaky heads. Is it worth the initial investment versus going out to your local store and buying you a box of shaky heads? So what I did is I went and I looked up all the current prices online. I got all my stuff from Barlow's Tackle, with the exception of my lead. Now, they have different models, pot sizes, brands, I mean, you name it, it's out there. All the way down to fluid beds, and I'll explain on the fluid beds later on in the section. But right now, the initial cost of building your own shaky head. So with that, you're going to need a melting pot for your lead. This is a Lee 20-pound pot. They make smaller versions. This one's $65, and then they go down to, looks like little cast iron pots that are about 40 bucks. Then obviously your next purchase is going to be your jig mold itself. This is a do it mold tip up jig that goes from a 7/16 all the way down to a 1/8. Screw locks, got to have your bait keeper there, your screw lock hooks. These come in a package of 100 for, I believe I have written down $7.25. Then your hooks. I use Gamakatsu 604s. These are 3/0. I have some 4/0 right there. For a package of 25, you're looking at around $10. For a package of 100, I think it's $40.30. Then pretty much your powder paint, that's $7. And then everything else I did and got at Lowe's. With that being said, when it's all said and done, after your initial investment, when you just get to pouring, I'm making this tip up jig right here for less than 50 cents versus getting your name brand that you'll typically see in the stores. These are running $6 for 5, maybe a little less, but that's $1.20 versus less than 50 cents. And if you fish shaky heads and you fish them in the rocks, you will know you're going to get hung up. And I don't know about y'all, but if I'm going to get hung up and have to break off, I would much rather break off and lose something that cost me less than 50 cents versus there goes $1.20. Now, you can go into the bigger money savings when you start talking about your actual jigs. So if y'all want to see how we do our jigs, drop us a comment below. And let us know. We can do a video on how we do jigs over here at the Barrett Custom one-stop shop here at the house. So stay tuned. Check it out. I think y'all find it pretty interesting. All right, let's dive in with equipment that I use. Okay, gotta have a melting pot. I get pretty much everything I need with the exception of my lead from Barlow's there in Richardson. Shoot, I got this probably 5 years ago. It's a Lee melting pot. I think this one's their 20-pound. They make a 4-pound, and then they even have, it looks like a little mini cast iron that you plug in. This one's going to run you around 65 bucks. The 20-pound, the 4-pound, I believe is like 45 bucks, and then the small cast iron melting pot, I believe, is around 40 as well. So anyways, you got to have a melting pot. For what we're going to pour today is 3 and 4/0. These are Gamakatsu 604 hooks. Now, when you order your hooks, make sure that they are for the tip-up jig mold or any of your cast molds, because different molds accommodate one or more specific style hooks. So double check with what your tip up mold or your jig mold you're pouring to correlate with what hooks you'll need to order. Again, I said 3 and 4/0. I predominantly will pour 1/8, 3/16 and quarter majority of the time. Yes, I do have some 3/8, some 7/16, but that's usually when I'm fishing pretty deep, and that's not real often. At least for myself, it's not. What I did different though is on my jig mold, I took my Dremel and opened up the little spacing where your hook fits, because typically your 1/4 ounce will adapt to a 2/0 hook. Your 3/16 is a 1/0 hook, and your 1/8 is a number 1. I'm throwing my 1/8 on a 3/0 hook, my 3/16 on a 4/0 hook, and my 1/4 ounce on a 5/0 hook. I like a beefier, statier hook on my shaky heads. I mean, we set the hook pretty hard, and like I say, we catch some good fish, especially on smaller 1/8 ounce heads. So again, I like a beefier, stouter hook. This is the tip up jig mold from, again, Do It Molds. It pours from, again, the 7/16 to a 1/8. Screw locks. These come in 100. So you can pour quite a bit. There's specific part numbers for this one, but again, that's 100. And I kind of ran some numbers. Like I said, your hooks are going to be, for 25 of them, you're looking at about $10 to $11. The screw locks, 400, that's about $7. Your tip up mold, which is going to be one of your most expensive other than your pour. But I mean, once you buy it, it's yours. It's not something that it's a reoccurring cost. This is $46. Again, like I talked about, the molds on their prices. So your startup investment is going to be anywhere between $100 and $150. The lead, like I said, I don't get this from Barlow's, just because I have found coastal places where you're going to go offshore fishing, your snapper fishing, all your charters, there's 99% of the time going to be a tackle shop right there. This was from a snapper fishing trip we took in Destin, Florida. These are 22 ounce, just clean lead casted sinkers, and gosh, I want to say I bought a sack of them for, I mean, $10. And I've been using these for the last 3 or 4 years, and probably poured every bit of 500 or more between jigs and shaky heads, and I still have plenty of this left. So, but if you're wanting to go on a budget, tire weights, you know, your tire repair shops, when they go to balance your tires, they pull all those old lead weights off, and they usually just either throw them in a bucket or throw them in the trash. Stop by those places and ask them, hey, you got any old used tire weights that are lead that I can use? Now double check and make sure that you do grab the ones that are lead, or when you get home, make sure you don't grab any of the the mag alloy ones. That way you're not putting something like that in your melting pot. With that being said, if you do get the tire weights, power wash them. Try to get a lot of the dirt, road grime, and all that stuff off, because you are going to have some impurities. So with this right here, I also got from Barlow's. It's just fluxing. It's a lead fluxing compound. It only takes, I think, 1/8 of a tablespoon per, 10 to 20 pounds. But that'll help bring those impurities up to surface. And then I just you can use a spoon or just a little scraper like this and scrape those impurities. And this is just an old can that my wife had as a flower pot a long time ago. I took that over. So, ventilation. Lead is a toxic metal. I guess you always read on the back, this contains lead, birth defects, etc., etc. Make sure you got ventilation. I have a little fan here that I clip to this windowsill. I'm outside. I'm outside. I'm in my shop. So I'll open up the window, and I have my fan pointing that way. It kind of pulls the fumes out. It's soft, so it does not take very long for this to get melted. I think lead melts at around 600 or 630, 630 degrees, something around that nature. So when it melts, I mean, obviously things can splash. It can, you know, if it gets on you, like I said, it doesn't feel good. But don't be breathing this stuff in. A lot of people wear masks, they wear gloves. Obviously that's not, you know, bad to use. If and when you do use this fluxing compound, I put that in prior to heating my pot up, because if you add this while you have your lead already melted down, if you've ever put water in a grease pan, it just gets that initial splatter effect. It will do that, especially when you go to mix. So I highly recommend putting this in prior to turning your pot on. So with that, let's get started. You know, we got a melting pot, hooks, screw locks, the jig mold, powder paint, and lead. That's pretty much it. Everything else you can pretty much get pretty cheap as it goes. Once you make that initial investment, speaking of Z, that's Z right there. Once you make your initial investment, it pretty much is my opinion, the better, cheaper route to go. Other thing is I feel better, or I feel, I don't know, like you achieved whenever you catch a fish on something that you made. You know, you just didn't go out to the store, buy it, throw it on, hey, caught a fish. Whenever you make your own, I don't know, it just, anything, it's a mental thing. It boosts that mental, positive mental attitude. There you go, G. There's a shout out to the old PMA man himself. You know, like I said, your biggest investment is going to be your pot, which we talked about that. Then you got your jig mold. This is a tip-up jig mold, you know, your standard shaky head jig mold. This pours from a 7/16 down to a 1/8. Yes, I have some 7/16 and 3/8, but majority of the time I'm throwing anywhere between a 1/4 ounce down to a 1/8. Now, one thing that I did is I modified mine. Okay, where I left off, modifications on the mold itself. What I did is I took my Dremel tool and dremeled out where the shank of your hook's going to inlay. Now, typically this is set up that, you know, your 1/8 ounce head will hold a number 1 hook, your 3/16 a 1/0 hook, your 1/4 a 2/0 hook, and then so on and so forth. So like I said, I typically will throw that 1/4, 3/16 and 1/8. Well, that 1/4 ounce, instead of a 2/0 hook, I dremeled this out to accommodate a 5/0 hook. The 3/16 a 4/0 hook, and my 1/8, I throw a 3/0 hook. I like a beefier, stouter hook on my shaky heads. But you have to be extremely careful, if that zooms in there, when you do one side, you have to kind of equally do it to the other, because again, it's a clamshell. If it's off one side or the other, you will notice that when you pour your jig. So if you are going to kind of do any modifications, just be mindful that whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So just another little quick little tip of how you can get a bigger, beefier hook on your jig mold itself. Okay, so fans on, we've got the pot going, it's starting to heat up. Like I said, it doesn't take much of this fluxing compound. Sometimes it'll ball up on you. Like I said, I just take a small pinch like this and I will sprinkle some of that right on top while that heats up. Another thing I like to do while I'm heating this pot up is I will take my jig mold, and this is something else that Barlow's has. It's called dropout. Not saying it's a necessity, but it is pretty nice to have. I just spray a little bit on it. That helps whenever you're taking the cast out. It just comes out a little easier. Another thing I like to do is I like to set my jig mold on top of my heating pot while it is heating up. I don't like to pour jigs into a cold mold. I just had several guys whenever I was starting out with this asking their opinions. All of them pretty much had the same input as far as, yeah, go ahead and preheat. They said it's not going to hurt anything anyways. They said because the more that you're pouring, the more that your cast is staying warm. So I guess to me, it's just an even bond, I guess, whenever it seizes up. Powder paint. While this is heating up, we can kind of talk a little bit about the powder paint. Sky's the limit on colors. I mean, you can go to Barlow's and pretty much if you can dream of the color, they got it. I stick with pretty much 3 colors. Green pumpkin, black, and I have a, which this one right here is, it's like a blue fleck. I love this color. It just, to me, it's something different. You don't see that often. But those are my 3 primary colors. I'll show y'all my air bedding, the bedding kit that I have that kind of fluffs the air up around that powder paint. And shoot, I think they're selling those for $100-something pretty much anywhere you look. I went to Lowe's and I think about $3 I was good to go, and then I bought a fishing air tank pump, which again, like I said, I'll show y'all that process when we get closer to that. In this, I mean, again, I'm not mocking this company, but this is a brand of shaky heads that you can get at Academy Bass Pro Shops. I mean, you can pretty much see it, know what it is. I've got a few boxes still up on my wall right over here. The only reason why I haven't used them is I pour my own. But again, you can see right there, this is Company X, and this is the old Barrett Custom, which again, your screw locks are the same. You're not grading your hooks. Lead is lead. Big difference is this one's $1.20, 50 cents or less for the ones that we're pouring here. You can ask old Z-Dub, and he can contest to it. When you're fishing rocks and you break off, I mean, there's times where we've broken off 10 times or better just because you just simply can't get it out. I would much rather lose 50 cents or less than $1.20. All right, we're ready to pour. So what you're gonna do is your mold's preheated, it's warm. Your screw lock. So we're gonna be pouring some 1/8 first. So that screw lock, there's a specific spot where there's a notch pre-made in this jig mold that holds your screw lock. And then obviously the same for your hook. When you go to close this, it's very important that this stays flush. If you see any kind of gap in between there, then that tells you that something is not set right inside your jig mold and you need to open it up and double check. So with that, now you're only going to pour till it comes right there at the top. Then after that, I just, 5 seconds, pull that out. And there you go. And you're probably going to say, well, what's this big chunk down here? Well, that's just your excess lead from your top spout. I'll usually pour them all and then I'll go in and then I'll cut, but for the sake of this, kind of shows what you're doing. So now you have, and that fast, you have a 1/8 ounce shaky head with a screw lock tip up jig head. Now, all right, here's a prime example. Y'all see that gap? That means something's not setting right inside my jig mold. There we go, we're flush. Pour that to the top. Now save your excess cut pieces. Obviously that's good, still good clean lead. So you can save and remelt all that. Again, boom. There you go. There's your 3/16 step up jig. Okay, next part of the phase is to get your paint ready. So got the old little convection oven my wife got me. You can use the oven in your house, but there's a reason why she got this for me out here, because she didn't like me having jig molds in the oven in the house. So anyways, 350 degrees, 25 minutes. What this is, it's powder paint. Stuff that you see on your trailers. It's powder coating. Yes, you can dip it, heat it up, and it looks fine. But if you don't bake that paint on, it's not going to get hard. If it doesn't get hard, then you'll notice that if you go without doing this next step, your paint's going to flake. It's going to chip off. The second you come in contact with that rock, you're going to notice, you're going to pull it up, and you're just going to see shiny lead. Alright, the next phase, again, is your adding your powder paint. Some people just heat up their jig heads and dip it in the paint. It's just a, if you can see that there, it's just powder. Some will just take theirs, swirl it around. I don't like to do that just because you don't get a good even coat. So, went to Petco, just got an old fish tank aerating pump. Okay, I think that was $15. And then when I went to Lowe's and made my homemade fluid beds. Fluid bed setup, real simple. Go to Lowe's. It's 2-inch PVC connections fittings. You got a 2-inch threaded cap into a 2-inch female by female slip. A piece of 2-inch PVC that goes back into a slip to male thread, back into a female cap. From here up is your reservoir that your powder paint sets in. On the bottom, just so I don't spill it. On the bottom between your last chamber, which is your male thread back to your female, all this is right here is a paper sack. When your air comes in and hits this, it helps evenly spread and filter that air as an even broadcast when it enters your reservoir chamber to get that nice fluff. Okay, the last bottom piece, which I just moved this around to my different colors, all this is again is a 2-inch male that will slip into the bottom, and all this is just a little valve. It's just a T-valve, you know, that goes into the hose from my fish tank pump. You know, I just obviously just plug it in there, and it's just epoxied in there, and I just regulate my air. Now I start it with the air all the way off, and then I just gradually increase my air. Now we'll do a quick little demo here. Now you never want to fill, whenever you go to first start this, never have your paint all the way up, because the second you hit your air and that paint gets air in it, obviously it's going to be floating out of it, and you're going to have a mess. So I usually just have my chamber about halfway and then work from there. So as you can see, I mean, I'm touching paint up to, you know, about that deep on my finger. When you gradually start to add your air, you're going to get that initial shot, you know, right off the bat. And there's that. And after that, you're just going to start gradually increasing your air. Just opening that valve up just to where your paint gets to right about where you want. And like I said, all that's doing is that's causing all this paint to have air in it and gets a good fluid bed. And I mean, you went from a finger depth here to maybe even a fingernail. Now again, that just allows you to get a nice even coat of paint around your jig head. So all this, probably $5 for the PVC and everything versus, I don't know, 120 bucks buying it online. So hopefully this little quick setup will help you out, save you some money. Okay, we got the air going to our fluid bed. We've got our butane torch on. The thing that you're going to have to be mindful of is your eye, where your line's going to go through. You do not want to get that covered with paint, because once it cures, you don't want to be sitting there in the boat trying to knock and bust that paint out of your eye. So what I like to do, and again, lead melts at 620 degrees, so you do not want to hold this over your butane torch very long. So I just enough to get it hot, and then I'll come in on my fluid bed and I like to go about 3 times, sometimes 4. And as you can see there, we have successfully powder painted the first one. As you can see, I dipped it about 4 times. There is no paint in your eye, which is what you want. Okay, it will be tacky, so what I like to do is I like to take that oven rack and I'll set it down on my box, and I just set it down right there, my next jigs. So again, and I like to hold mine on the side. That way I know I do not get that hook done. That eyelet, excuse me. Okay, now that we have everything is now painted, they will go into your oven. Usually that rack will be plumb full. Go to the oven. Go ahead and just set your timer for 25 minutes. Set it, forget it. And there we go, guys. There is the finished product of the Shaky heads. Pretty simple, not very hard to do, but our opinion, very well worth the money. Alright y'all, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Fish Life Outdoors. Hopefully this video helped y'all on making the decision on whether or not it's worth the initial investment on making your own Shaky heads versus going to the store and buying them. Hey, if there's more videos that we can do to help y'all out, tips, tricks, how-tos, you know, we can do one on jigs, we can do one on reloads. Y'all let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hey, and like we do out here at Fish Life Outdoors, when you're about that life, get out and live it, baby. Cannon out.